Yeah, talking freedom and liberation. Worldwide, not just only for the nation. A radical guide, it's time to make changes. Bringing interviews and radical education. Yeah, a better future, what we really need.
Welcome to episode 2 of A Radical Podcast. I'm Jason Bayless, and I'll be your host today. If you're joining us for the first time, our podcast explores the history, ideas, and movements of radical thought and activism worldwide. In today's episode, we'll delve into the fascinating history of anarchism in Latin America, which has witnessed diverse radical movements and struggles. Our objective is to comprehensively understand anarchism's role in shaping various Latin American countries' political and social landscape. Whether you're an activist, a student of history, or just someone interested in learning about radical movements, this podcast is for you. In this episode, we'll be covering the following sections: the roots of anarchism in Latin America. We'll look at the origins of anarchism in the region and the key figures who played essential roles in promoting and organizing anarchist movements, such as Ricardo Flores Magón in Mexico and Simon Radowitzki in Argentina. Anarchism and revolutions. We'll explore the impact of anarchism on two significant events in Latin American history, the Mexican Revolution and the Patagonia Rebelde in Argentina, both of which fought for workers' rights, land reform, and education. Contemporary anarchism in Latin America. We'll discuss the ongoing influence of anarchism in the region, focusing on contemporary anarchist groups and collectives that continue to fight against neoliberalism, state violence, and environmental destruction, striving for a more equitable and just society. So let's dive into the rich history of anarchism in Latin America and the lasting impact of its radical movements and struggles.
Let's go!
In this week's Anarchists and Radical News segment, we're looking at a recent event highlighting the ongoing struggle against police violence and the environmental impact of law enforcement infrastructure. According to an article from Decaturist.com on Friday, April 14th, students from Agnes Scott College in Decatur, Georgia, led a community-wide march in solidarity with the Stop Cop City movement. The march started on the school campus and proceeded to the DeKalb County Commissioner's offices on Commerce Drive in Decatur. Cop City is the name activists give to Atlanta's proposed public safety training center, which has been criticized for its potential impact on predominantly Black communities and the environment. Before we continue with the news report, let's provide some context for those unfamiliar with Cop City. The Atlanta Public Safety Training Center, commonly known as Cop City, is a police and fire services training center under construction near Atlanta, Georgia. The $90 million project is being built on an 85-acre plot of land in the South River Forest, DeKalb County, Georgia. Once complete, the center is planned to be used as a training center for police and fire services and is expected to open in the fourth quarter of 2023. Facilities at the site will include classrooms, a burning building, a mock city, and a shooting range. The project has been met with protests that began in 2021, known as the Stop Cop City movement. During the protests, several protesters were arrested and charged with domestic terrorism offenses, attracting controversy over the validity of the charges. In January 2023, protester Manuel Esteban Paez Terán was fatally shot by Atlanta police. According to a lawyer working on behalf of Terán's mother, an independent autopsy revealed that Terán was most likely in a seated, cross-legged position when killed, and both his hands showed exit wounds in the palms. This tragic incident highlights the connection between police violence, projects like Cop City, and the ongoing disregard for marginalized communities. Now, back to the recent march in Decatur. The movement was initiated by politically engaged students from multiple campuses, including Agnes Scott, who are concerned about the country's direction. The students aim to uplift the communities in DeKalb County, where the proposed facility is set to be built, as they believe it would disenfranchise Black and brown residents. The issue at hand encompasses environmental concerns and deeper systematic issues related to police brutality. Decatur City Commissioner Lisa Mayer, who participated in the march, voiced her support for stopping the construction of the police training center. Mayer criticized the choice of location, stating that the city of Atlanta would never consider putting a facility of this type in certain other areas. According to Mayer, building the center in a predominantly Black community and close to an environmentally sensitive area is egregious. Agnes Scott student Julia Rademacher Wed echoed these sentiments emphasizing that students want to express their feelings and let their government know there is continued resistance against the project. She added, "We're going to keep coming out until this project is stopped." This recent march in Decatur, Georgia, demonstrates the ongoing struggle against police violence and the need for a more equitable society. As activists and communities continue to push back against projects like Cop City, it serves as a reminder that the fight for justice is far from over.
A radical guide, that's what this is, highlighting the diverse world of resistance.
In this episode, we're exploring the history of anarchism in Latin America, which has witnessed diverse radical movements and struggles. Anarchism has significantly shaped Latin American countries' political and social landscapes, often in response to oppressive systems and the fight for social justice. The roots of anarchism in Latin America can be traced back to the late 19th and early 20th centuries, when anarchist ideas began to spread through the region, largely influenced by European immigrants. Key figures such as Ricardo Flores Magón in Mexico and Simon Radowitzki in Argentina played essential roles in promoting and organizing anarchist movements. Ricardo Flores Magón, 1874 to 1922, was a Mexican anarchist, journalist, and revolutionary who played a critical role in the spread of anarchist ideas in Mexico. As one of the founding members of the Mexican Liberal Party, PLM, he used his journalistic skills to disseminate anarchist ideology through various newspapers, including Regeneración, which became the voice of the PLM. Magón actively participated in labor strikes and protests against the dictatorship of Porfirio Díaz, advocating for land reform, workers' rights, and education. He was instrumental in inspiring the Mexican Revolution, and his ideas continued to resonate with various radical groups and movements throughout the 20th century. Simon Radowitzki, 1891 to 1956, was an Argentine anarchist of Ukrainian origin who symbolized anarchist resistance in Argentina. At the age of 18, Radowitzki assassinated the chief of police, Ramon Falcon, in retaliation for Falcon's brutal repression of a workers' protest. Radowitzki was sentenced to life in prison, but became a celebrated figure among the anarchist community. His actions and subsequent imprisonment galvanized the anarchist movement in Argentina, leading to widespread protests and demands for his release. After spending over 20 years in prison, Radowitzki was released and continued participating in anarchist activities. His unwavering commitment to the cause inspired future generations of anarchists in Argentina and beyond. Throughout the 20th century, Latin America saw several anarchist uprisings and revolts that aimed to challenge the status quo and promote social change. Two notable examples are the Mexican Revolution and the Patagonia Rebelde in Argentina, which fought for workers' rights, land reform, and education. The Mexican Revolution, 1910 to 1920, was a major armed struggle that profoundly transformed Mexican society and politics. The revolution was initially sparked by opposition to the dictatorship of Porfirio Díaz, who had held power for over 3 decades. Anarchist ideas, particularly those of Ricardo Flores Magón and the Mexican Liberal Party, influenced the revolutionary demands. Key revolutionary figures like Emiliano Zapata and Pancho Villa advocated for land reform and redistribution, addressing the widespread inequality and land concentration in the hands of a few wealthy landowners. The Zapatistas, followers of Zapata, were heavily influenced by anarchist principles and sought to create a more just and equitable society through agrarian reform and grassroots organization. The Mexican Revolution ultimately led to a new constitution in 1917, incorporating significant social reforms, such as labor rights, land reform, and secular education. Emiliano Zapata, 1879 to 1919, was a leading figure in the Mexican Revolution and a champion of agrarian reform. Born into a peasant family in the southern state of Morelos, Zapata experienced firsthand the injustices faced by rural communities under the Porfirio Díaz regime. He became a prominent leader of the peasant struggle against the large haciendas, which monopolized land and resources. As a charismatic and skilled organizer, Zapata rallied thousands of peasants and indigenous people to fight for their rights. His revolutionary army, the Zapatistas, adhered to the slogan Tierra y Libertad, land and liberty, reflecting their commitment to land reform and social justice. Zapata's Plan de Ayala, a key document of the Mexican Revolution, called for expropriating land from large estates and redistributing it to the rural poor. Pancho Villa, 1878 to 1923, born Doroteo Arango, was another prominent revolutionary leader during the Mexican Revolution. Hailing from the northern state of Chihuahua, Villa experienced poverty and marginalization throughout his early life. He joined the revolutionary struggle against the Diaz regime and quickly gained a reputation as a skilled guerrilla fighter and military strategist. Leading the Division del Norte, Villa commanded a diverse army that fought for land reform, workers' rights, and political representation. Villa's military successes against federal forces and his alliances with other revolutionary leaders, including Zapata, made him a key figure in the Mexican Revolution. Both Emiliano Zapata and Pancho Villa played essential roles in the Mexican Revolution, fighting against oppressive systems and advocating for the rights of peasants, workers, and the disenfranchised. Their commitment to social justice and their influence on the revolutionary movement made them enduring symbols of resistance and struggle for a more equitable society. The Patagonia Rebelda, also known as the Patagonian Uprising or the Patagonian Rebellion, was a series of anarchist-led labor strikes and revolts in Argentine Patagonia between 1920 and 1922. The rebellion began as a response to the harsh working conditions and exploitation of rural workers, primarily in the sheep farming industry. Anarchist activists and labor unions, such as the Argentine Regional Workers' Federation, played a crucial role in organizing the strikes and promoting the workers' demands for better wages, shorter workdays, and improved living conditions. One of the key organizations involved in the Patagonia Rebelda was the Federación Obrera Regional Argentina, FORA, which had established the Sociedad Obrera de Rio Gallegos, Workers' Society of Rio Gallegos, in Rio Gallegos, province of Santa Cruz. The organization was directed by the Spanish anarchist Antonio Soto, known as the Gallego Soto. Soto and the Sociedad Obrera de Rio Gallegos were instrumental in mobilizing workers and coordinating the strikes and revolts that would become the Patagonia Rebelde. The Argentine government brutally suppressed the Patagonia Rebelde, killing thousands of workers or imprisoning them during the crackdown. Despite the tragic outcome, the Patagonia Rebelde remains an important episode in Argentine history, symbolizing the struggle for workers' rights and the influence of anarchist ideas in the region. The efforts of the FORA, Antonio Soto, and the Sociedad Obrera de Rio Gallegos exemplify the resilience and dedication of anarchist organizers in fighting for the rights of the working class in Latin America. Anarchist movements in Latin America have often been characterized by their emphasis on direct action, horizontalism, and mutual aid. For instance, the Centro de Cultura Social, CCS, in Brazil is an important cultural and social center that promotes anarchism and engages in community organizing. In Brazil, the Federação Anarquista Gaúcha has been active in promoting anarchism and engaging in community organizing. In Chile, the Movimiento Juventud Libertaria, MJD, has focused on youth activism and creating social and cultural spaces that embody anarchist values. You can learn more about these groups and locations at ARadicalGuide. While the influence of anarchism has waned in some Latin American countries over time, it remains an important part of the region's political fabric. Today, contemporary anarchist groups and collectives fight against neoliberalism, state violence, and environmental destruction, striving for a more equitable and just society.
Radical education, yeah, a better future, what we really need, not rooted in capitalism or supremacy.
I want to share some updates about ARadicalGuide with you. First, I want to remind you that you can contribute to ARadicalGuide by adding locations of your favorite radical spots. If you have a favorite anarchist bookstore or know of a historical marker that features anarchist or radical history, we encourage you to add it. It's easy to add a location. Just visit radicalguide.com and click Submit a Listing and add your location today. And yes, it's free. Now for some news I am very excited about. ARadicalGuide is currently working on designing a new online course called A Radical Guide to Anti-Fascist Organizing. This course will explore anti-fascist organizing, including its history, principles, and strategies for building a sustainable movement. The course aims to equip participants with the knowledge, skills, and tools to effectively confront fascist and far-right movements and build a more just and equitable world. Stay tuned for more details about this upcoming course. To stay up to date on new locations, new courses, and events, we invite you to sign up for a Radical Guides newsletter. And lastly, to our passionate listeners who want to fuel the fire of radical change and support a Radical Guide, we encourage you to visit radicalguide.com and click on Support ARG. No matter the size of your contribution, every bit makes a difference in helping us continue to create and share radical content. That's it for our updates about a Radical Guide. Stay tuned as we continue discussing important topics and sharing valuable resources for our community.
Let's go.
As we wrap up this episode of A Radical Podcast, we explored the rich history of anarchism in Latin America and how it has significantly shaped the region's radical movements and struggles. We delved into the various challenges, successes, and lessons that can be drawn from these experiences, which provide valuable insights for anarchists and radicals worldwide. We want to thank you all for tuning in to episode 2, and we hope you found it enlightening and thought-provoking. We would love to hear your thoughts, feedback, or questions on today's episode, so please feel free to share them with us. You can connect with A Radical Guide on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Collectiva, and of course at radicalguide.com. And remember, this podcast is now available on Spotify, Pandora, Google Podcasts, and Amazon Podcasts, so be sure to subscribe and share it with your friends. I look forward to having you join us for our next episode, where we will continue to explore radical ideas, movements, and perspectives.
Yeah, talking freedom and liberation. Worldwide, not just only for the nation. A Radical Guide, it's time to make changes. Bringing interviews and radical education. Yeah, a better future, what we really need. Not rooted in capitalism or supremacy. Yeah, trust, you don't want to miss it. We bring the truth right to you, the past, present, and future. Let's go. A Radical Guide, that's what this is. Highlighting the diverse world of resistance. Let's go.